When I played the original Hellblade, Senua's Sacrifice, back in 2017, that game wowed me. Its atmosphere, sound, story, the puzzles and world building, the fight on that bridge that took me entirely too long to conquer. It helps that I'm a sucker for anything Viking or Norse mythology related. But it also had a deep secondary story and message to deliver about mental health and the struggles that those plagued by these issues live with every day. But they presented those real life issues within a creative and mystical Viking setting. When I played that game, I was incredibly impressed and captivated. I enjoyed my whole time with that game, and have thought back on it many times over the years since I played it. So, finally, the day had come to play the sequel to a game that left a lasting impression on me. I couldn't wait to dive back into that world to see where Senua's journey takes her and myself. Let me start out by saying this. This game has me very torn. It's a bit of a conundrum, honestly. It was an amazing experience. I played it all in one sitting in about 7 hours. It was a constant assault on the senses in all the best ways. But I'm torn because it's unlike anything else I've ever played, specifically because of how you play it. Yes, you control what is happening on screen, but only in the most basic of ways. I've played a lot of the Telltale games, like The Walking Dead, Wolf Among Us, Tales from the Borderlands, stuff like that. Hellblade 2 is similar in my mind. It's more of a playable story than your typical game. I enjoy the Telltale games, but even those games felt more gamey than Hellblade 2, and I can't quite put my finger on why. Maybe it's because of the on-screen prompts of when to push buttons, maybe it's because the graphics were more cartoony looking. I'm not sure. But when it comes to Hellblade 2's gameplay, it certainly lacks a connection to the player. It's very surface level. I know some people will say, well, yeah, didn't you play the first one? And yeah, I did. Which is why I found it so noticeable how surface level the gameplay was in this sequel. Because even though the first one was very similar, I felt more feedback from my controller and from the world when I was pushing the buttons, especially in the combat. Now, there are 3 types of gameplay in Hellblade 2. The first being walking. That's really all there is to say about it. You walk from one point to another. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you gotta get around somehow, right? But when you're slowly walking or slightly jogging in most cases, it's not exactly the most engaging gameplay experience. Especially when one of my pet peeves in video games is them forcing me to move at a certain pace. No thanks. The next type of gameplay is puzzles. I do think this is an improvement from the first game. They have a couple types of puzzles. One is like it is in the first game, where you must find things in the environment, look at them from a certain angle to see the symbols you must use to unlock the next section. Thankfully, they don't overuse this type of puzzle like they did in the first game. The other type of puzzle has to do with these water-like orbs that float in the sky. When you focus on them, it changes the environment, allowing you to access an area that had been blocked by natural structures only moments before. These are creative and take a little bit of trial and error, but none of the puzzles were overly challenging. Again, the presentation of these types of areas was always top tier and visually impressive. The third type of gameplay is combat. I mentioned the bridge fight from the first game earlier. That fight was intense. I failed it multiple times, but I felt like it was a knockdown, drag-out fight that depended on my skill to prevail. Like Senua at the other side of the bridge, I felt exhausted afterwards. All of the fights in Hellblade 2 are brutal, visceral, cinematically incredible. The transitions from one enemy to the next were chaotic and disorienting. It made you feel like you were truly in the fog of battle, trying to fight for your life. But due to the controls, I simultaneously wondered if my life was actually in danger at all. I don't believe I actually ever died in the combat segments. Even when you get knocked down and it seems like it's over, you can still find a way to dodge, get back up, and overcome your attacker. It almost felt like no matter how much I'd missed the timing of a parry or a dodge, it didn't matter because in the end, I was supposed to win the fight. There is a light attack and a strong attack. While you fight, you charge a special attack meter that is visualized as a mirror you find early on with glowing runes that light up when it's charged. Whenever I was getting bested by one of my giant attackers, I would strategically save up my charge and then use it to cheese my way past that particularly troublesome opponent. It was always stunning to watch and hear, but generally bland to actually control. I know it sounds like I'm being harsh on the game. I'm not trying to be. I'm honestly trying to figure out a way to express the gameplay because it's a bit of an enigma to me. I've never played a game where I was simultaneously enthralled and captivated by its world and everything pertaining to it, while also being so aware that my control of its leading character felt empty. Let me take a break for a minute from psychoanalyzing the gameplay to just express how incredible the other aspects of this game really are. I'd be hard-pressed to find a game that looks better than this. There were numerous times during my 7 hours with this game where I actually forgot I was looking at digital creations. From the expressions and movements, to the way Senua's hair moved when traversing the environment, to the spit on her lips when she was yelling. It's truly a groundbreaking achievement in my eyes. There were a number of times where I just stopped what I was doing and spun the camera around Senua so I could take in the surroundings. Truly astonishing.
This is what it feels like when you follow your destiny. You know what to do.
It also goes without saying that the mocap and acting from all the actors is top notch. They should all be recognized for the terrific performances they gave.
More than he can understand.
No more slaves, and no more sacrifices.
He is trying to understand. Is he?
Sacrifices. No more cowering in our fortress. We could fight.
Then there is the sound design. I'm not even sure where to start. As many others have already said, this is certainly a game to play with headphones. The 3D audio used to bring you into this world and specifically into the mind of Senua is incredible. From the multiple voices in her head constantly bouncing between my ears, to the environmental sounds, to the pounding tribal music, it was an all-out assault on my audio sense. There were a number of times where I had chills down my spine. The deep, ominous voices of some of the creatures you encounter, those are truly haunting moments. The set pieces also did not disappoint. I won't go into spoilers, but the engagements with the giants were always harrowing and grand. I also liked a number of the environmental scenes. The one that really stands out was where you had to travel between structures and hold on for dear life as waves crashed down on you, threatening to take you out to sea. It was a simple gameplay mechanic of run to the next structure and hold down A, but it worked effectively. Oh no. That's actually a prime example of a very simple gameplay moment that was put in the midst of such amazing audio and visual design that I didn't mind it. I was lost in the moment, and perhaps the fact that I didn't have to overthink how to control what I needed to do is exactly what let me get lost in that moment. I also really enjoyed the fact that there were more characters in this game. They added interesting dynamics to the story and created opportunities for great interactions for Senua to have outside of just talking to herself. The giants, as I've mentioned them multiple times, were certainly my favorite parts of the game. The ambiance in the areas they inhabit, their disturbing voices, their gruesome appearances, especially the ways they moved, simply amazing. But that left me feeling slightly disappointed by the finale of the game. I won't go into specifics, but considering how epic the first encounters with the giants were, It left me feeling slightly underwhelmed by the last encounter and how it plays out. Nonetheless, I understand what they were going for, story and message wise. It just didn't land quite how I wanted it to personally. I'd also like to briefly mention that I didn't find the underlying message about mental health and related issues to be quite as poignant as it was in the first game. While I do understand what they were going for and the points they were trying to make, it didn't seem quite as effective as the original was in driving that message home. So, after talking in circles, what is my final take on this game? Ninja Theory has created something that makes you forget you're even playing a game. And maybe that's the point. Maybe that's the missing piece of the puzzle I haven't been able to find. Maybe the gameplay that makes me feel like I'm only a few button presses ahead of watching a movie was intentional. Maybe their goal was to set out to create something that so perfectly blended two entertainment mediums that your brain couldn't decide which one you're actually participating in. If that's the case, they succeeded. Senua's Saga Hellblade 2 really is something to behold. It's breathtaking, heart-pounding, stunning, panic-inducing. It's a statement about love, sacrifice, and overcoming your demons. It's also just a damn cool Viking game. It is a true cinematic and gaming experience that's unlike anything else I've played. It's short and doesn't overstay its welcome. It's the perfect length for something like this. If you're looking for a game with new groundbreaking mechanics that will affect all future games to come, I would look elsewhere. But if you're looking for something beautiful, a story that makes you forget where you are for a while, something that makes you feel, well then this is definitely an experience you should try out for yourself.